What's up guys, I'm Jeremy, welcome back to Catfish Motorsports. Today, the carburetor on my big block Ford here runs psychotically rich. We're gonna try to fix that today. Hello children. This is the 503 cubic inch big block Ford in my 1966 Ford Fairlane gasser. And this is a Holley XP 850. This is a very expensive carb, it's like a $1,000 carburetor. I'll put the part number up and a link to it, etc. so you can see it. The eagle-eyed among you may notice that the metering blocks don't match. That's because I already kind of started doing this swap and then I said, you know what, this might help somebody else. Let me go ahead and turn the camera on real quick. Here's the metering block that I took out of the front of this. We'll show this up close in detail here in a second. Now for starters here, I have a wideband. And this carburetor here, you can get it tuned to idle very well. It'll sit down around 14.5, something like that, which is kind of where I like idle. When you put your foot in the throttle, it goes to about 12.5 to 1, which is, again, right where you want it to be. But when you are just part throttle cruising, you know, going 30, 45 miles an hour, puttering around town, this thing is drowning. Now, without the wideband, you probably wouldn't know, because it still seems to run fine. But it's just wasting gas, and it, you know, you can smell it. On the wideband, it sits, I'd say on average 10.9 to 11.1, which is crazy rich, but I have seen numbers as low as like a high 9. It is crazy, crazy rich. Again, you probably wouldn't know that if you didn't have a wideband, but that's why I support, if you're driving around an engine that you care about, use a wideband. Both of the engines that I would be upset if they made sounds that I can't afford have widebands on them. The junky old 455 in my station wagon, it doesn't, because I don't really care about that engine. This is also a point that I would make, guys that say, you know, my EFI ran bad and I went back to carb and it runs fine. Probably is rich like this. Holley tends to calibrate things rich, not as rich as this. This is excessive. And I was actually watching David Freiberger episode with him and Dulcich talking about the crop duster and its iterations, and they had said that the Holley XP is a phenomenal carburetor on the dyno, where you're basically just going full throttle. But they had themselves found that it's crazy rich at idle and really just hard to get tuned in for the street. And that's when I came out here and started messing around. So I am robbing some parts off of another carburetor that I have to put into this boy, and let's see if we can make it a more reasonable street machine. I hate doing anything that requires me to drain fluid. I hate draining coolant, I hate changing radiators, water pumps, and fuel out of a carburetor comes in. It's not a particularly hard task, I just don't like doing it. Let's do it. Okay, carburetor's off. Here are our two metering blocks. This is the one that, at least as far as I know, came with the Holley XP. Full disclosure, I did not purchase that carb. It came with a box of parts when I bought the car. Part number all checks out, but I can't promise that somebody didn't monkey with it. This is a quick fuel metering block off of this quick fuel 930 annular discharge HP model. Now you might ask yourself why I don't just swap that carburetor on there. A couple of reasons. Number one, because even though this is a drag and drive car, it is a race car too, it's a street car first, and this has an electric choke, which I like, and maybe more importantly, because it's a gasser and it sits kind of funky, I've got the bowls dialed in where I like. So I want to keep everything the same except for the metering blocks. So what are we really looking at here? Well, when we're talking about our very partial throttle cruise. Now you get out on the highway where we're talking about cruising at 70, your jets might come more into play. But when we're talking about really light throttle cruise, which is where my problem is, it's really almost all in the idle circuit. Your jets aren't coming into play that much. I did try it just to see if it made a difference, but going down in jet sizes made no difference in my problem. I still was 10.9 to 1 at cruise, but when I matted the throttle, it was going lean rather than going, you know, that 12.5, that healthy number that we wanted to. So what we're gonna mess around with here is our idle circuit. Now Holleys, especially depending on what your carburetor is, you're gonna have more or less magic spells in your bag of tricks to throw at it. For example, if we look at this HP body, I'll get you a close up. It has adjustable air bleeds in the top. You could, in theory, mess with your idle air bleeds. Now because these are bleeds, I'm pretty sure I'm getting this right, because these are bleeds, bigger is going to be leaner. So if we wanted to lean it out, we would put bigger air bleeds. These are just screw in, I think these are 832 air bleeds into this, and that would in theory lean out your idle circuit. We're not going that route. Notably, because my XP here, when we get in a close shot on that, it does not have removable air bleeds. So we couldn't do that really even if we wanted to. But this is the one where you'll see people stick pieces of wire down in them, which makes them smaller, which will richen your engine up. So that's the one where you hear people talk, well, stick a piece of wire in it. They're mostly talking about those. What we are going to mess around with are idle feed restrictors, which you might hear under a couple different names, but that's what I'm going to call them. Those are even smaller. Those are 632. And again, every Holley carburetor is not going to have adjustable versions of these. That's part of the reason that I'm using these here, because I really thought that this $1,000 XP carb was going to have screw-in idle feed restrictors, but it does not. I was initially inclined to believe, again, like that was a mistake somebody made at some point, but then, as I said, I was watching that David Freiberger episode, and they were talking about how insanely rich the XPs were on the street, and I contacted another Holley expert, because while I know more than the average car show goer about carburetors, there's still a big gap between me and a true expert in the field. And they also said they don't recommend XPs for anybody that's not, you know, racing them almost exclusively or as a dyno mule, just because they're really hard to get dialed in on the street. But basically here, if we look at this, here is our idle adjustment screws, which you guys are probably familiar with, one on either side. And we can see kind of the corridors that this corresponds with. So we go up to here, and we've got one of those little 632 brass, it's a jet, basically, but it's they're calling it a restrictor, but it functions as a jet. Same thing on the other side, here, here, and here's our little jet. Right there. Let's get a look at our billet unit here that came on the XP. Now you might go, well, man, that hole's just straight blank. I know it's harder to see because it's black. The IFR, idle feed restrictor, in this guy is in the low position. Tilt it right, you can see a little brass piece in there. Unfortunately, this is not adjustable. I'm probably actually going to drill these out so they are adjustable and thread them. But these are likely like 0.37, maybe 0.35. It would benefit from those 0.33s that we talked about. Best place I have found to find these is Allstate Carburetor. They have both a large supply and they're reasonably priced. There were some other places I found where they wanted like $30 to ship these little things that can't weigh more than a gnat. Once you locate them on the website, there's just a drop-down box. You can select pretty much any size you want. They're sold individually. Remember, you need at least 4, and you need 4 of whichever size you want to try. So if you want to try multiple sizes, you're going to need 4 of the individual sizes. Now, even with me telling you where to find them, they can still be difficult to search for. Put 6-32 in the search bar, and you'll find what you're looking for. Now, I don't know exactly what these are. The most common size, the big, like 850 and above Holley 4150 carburetor ship with, is a 35 thousandths idle feed restrictor, so 0.035. Now, I have actually kind of already started doing this off camera, but I'm going to take all the parts that were in this and put it into this. We are putting this to essentially factory settings except for these idle air feed restrictors. So it's getting 80s in the back and a 6.5 power valve. So we've let the old girl crank up, get some heat in her. I didn't make you listen to all, 3 minutes of that, but it's right about at the temperature where the fans would come on now. It's probably about 160 degrees. As I mentioned, I've got every idle mixture screw turned one out, and to be honest, I was sitting there watching the wideband while it was warming up. We might have gotten pretty close to nailing it right out of the box. It was sitting at about 14.5 once I heated up. It was lean at like first fire, but that just means I need to play with the choke some. that's not what we're going for here. I'll mess with that later. Now, in addition to having a wideband, I also have a progressive ignition distributor. It has an electronically controlled distributor in this, so I am able to get my vacuum and my tack on my phone here. So in addition to going around and looking at the wideband and seeing what we're at, I'm also going to be able to tune these idle mixture screws utilizing vacuum and RPM. I know from experience with this car that it's running pretty good at about 11 inches. Your mileage is going to vary on that. This is a fairly hot motor. It's not crazy. There are some of them that have bigger, snottier cams in them that you'd struggle to get 8 or 9 inches of vacuum out of. But I know that this one, if I'm seeing 9, 10, I've got some improvements to make. If I'm seeing 11 with an occasional jump into 12, that's about as good as we're going to get at about 950 RPM, something like that. So we're starting off at a 10, so we do have a little room to improve, but probably not very much. Probably not going to have to change it. Basically went right back from where we started, about one full turn all the way around, and it is fairly happy. I wouldn't mind seeing it a little bit leaner. It's at like 13.4 to 13.7, pretty steady, warm, idle. 960, 970, and we're sitting dead steady at that 11. I know you can get it to where it'll 12 every once in a while, but I think we're gonna start here and see how it goes. Well, it's the next day and we're out on a test drive, and so far I gotta tell you I'm a little disappointed. There is an excellent chance that the fixed units in the black metering blocks and the adjustable units in the silver metering blocks were the exact same size, be it 0.035 or 0.037. Now, it does seem like I could lean up the idle circuit a little bit more, because just sitting here in a neutral idle, we're at 13. So we could go leaner on that, but our cruise is still richer than I would like it to be. It did help, but we're still hovering in the 10s, 11s. I'd like to get it up to like 50 miles an hour and see what it looks like. Unfortunately, I can't take a long test drive because it does not look like my alternator is working. And I'm afraid my fans, the electric fans, will kill the battery pretty quick. So that's minorly concerning. Always something. Okay, I pulled over to a little church here. Only time to catch me in one of these. And made one more adjustment. Just turned them in a little bit more, so like another, probably not even an eighth of a turn more. I'm wanting to see this number at idle. See if I went a little too much. I would like that to be like 14.8. Yeah, now we're in the 15, 16s. The hell with it, we'll go home. It'll be fine. But oh yeah, we're like 14 now. We're steady state cruise, fourth gear, about 52, 53 miles an hour. We're not heavily loaded, we're going down a hill, but we're in the 14. Now we're kind of... So that, for sure, continues to make a difference, but I think the Demon Tweak, which I'm not going to make you guys watch the whole thing again and test it again, but the Demon Tweak is probably going to be going down from the factory size on those idle restrictor jets. Especially because I don't know what they are. They're probably 35, they might even be bigger than that. But yeah, so now we're steady in the 13th, as long as we're not under a heavy load going up the hill. I changed the .033s off camera, and now our idle is in the low to mid 14s, and our cruise is in the 13s, which is an improvement. In a perfect world, you would actually like to see those numbers reversed, like EFI would want to see it. But we still made an improvement going from whatever was in there before to the .033s. Now we don't have to go crazy lean idle to get it to be reasonable to cruise. And now we're at a steady state, 12 inches of vacuum, which is about as good as we're going to get for this car. That's going to do it for the adjustments on this episode. Did we dial it in exactly how we wanted it to? No. And I'm not going to make you watch all the rigmarole again where I pop this thing off again and change the jets and put it back on and then test it and then set the idle. And for a lot of you guys out there with a wideband, you might not even realize that this is potentially an issue for you, that you're just wasting fuel at cruise. Either way, I hope you learned something along the way. Hope I helped you out. Please like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.